going to bundle a few of these Feldenkrais fundamentals under the banner of lowering effort. And it's another one that, while it probably isn't actually controversial, is simply so unfamiliar to us. The idea that it isn't the striving and the trying and the struggling that is producing the results, and that it's possible to achieve something that feels useful, beneficial to your life, without you having to push yourself harder in order to do better. And that the apparently, for many of us, anti-intuitive idea that actually this sort of improvement that we're seeking in a Feldenkrais awareness through movement lesson is you're going to recognize that you are making less effort, that things are getting easier, and that even you can be enjoying it on purpose, not accidentally as a result of a big endorphin rush, but actually enjoying this improvement in your capacity to move with more freedom and ease and with less effort under your own volition, from your own choice. So to start what I hope is more or less a sort of beginning, one of the ways that we encourage you to begin to take this on board in an awareness through movement lesson is the idea that when we give you a verbal instruction of a movement, which is how it usually goes, so if it were a lesson in sitting, I might suggest to someone that they move their right shoulder joint upwards and then lower it again. And the idea of finding a range that is easy and pleasant to move within, but also really important that you're not always just going to wherever the boundary of the movement is, pushing yourself until you can't go any further. Now, it's a slight aside, but when you start to do the hands-on work, the functional integration part of Feldenkrais, you very quickly develop relationships with people who improve, feel better, respond to feeling better by going and overdoing it in some situation. Well, I was feeling great, and then I was gardening, and now my back hurts again. This is very normal. It's so normal that I've begun to really strongly suspect that it's sort of fundamental to injury, to be the kind of person who just doesn't know where their comfort boundaries are and just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing until they hit something much more obstructive, and that's often pain. But nearly always, you've got signals way before that, that you were maybe going a little outside your comfort and enjoyment of a situation or a behaviour or a thing you're doing. And I think in gardening it's kind of natural, isn't it? It's sort of like, oh, if I just carry on weeding to the end of this bed, then I'll have found a complete point. So Feldenkrais, this is kind of random thing that we do where it's sort of, okay, this is the movement, have a little go at it, see how you get on, rest whenever you want to, take it easy. If it doesn't feel nice, let the teacher know, and she or he will look precisely at what you're doing to see if there's a way that it could be more comfortable for you. Always, though, the Feldenkrais teacher is looking not to take your opportunity to learn away. It's very, very much not about telling you what to do. Giving you the how to play with is in order for you to discover for yourself what your particular individual whats are. This is what you're doing. So if I say to someone, that's too far for you to move your shoulder, I have interfered with their opportunity to notice and recognise that for themselves. And actually one of the ways we do this in a class is that we make general extra remarks but don't direct them at a particular person unless there's a very good reason to do so. So I might see a room full of people, I might suggest lifting the shoulder, and one person will be doing this and one person will be doing that. And I might say something along the lines of, If you are not able to do it any faster or further than you're already doing, then what's most effective is to dial down on both those areas of effort. See what it's like to go more slowly. If you can go more slowly, find out what it feels like to go more slowly. If you can do less, find out what it feels like to do less. And so we'll often give an instruction of, you'll hear me say this, I'm sure, in my recordings, to look for a range of motion that's somewhere between 30% of what you can do and 80% of what you can do. So, you know, that might be 30, yeah. This might be 80. And this might be absolutely everything you can do. And always it's looking for a comfortable place within an easy range. Another instruction I'll give is, to perform the movement as if you were going to do it all day. You want it to be an easy, comfortable thing you could do for a long time without running out of stamina. Though of course you'd be bored long before then, and we avoid the boredom as well when we can. So this kind of easy, comfortable range allows you to begin to notice what's nicer for you, what feels more pleasant for you, what's more enjoyable for you. So that's one element of thinking about the range of the motion and lowering your effort. Now, another thing that's very fundamental to Feldenkrais and a little rare, but not non-existent in other methods, is how much we value using the imagination. And it's probably not that weird or challenging to suggest that if you can do a movement entirely in your imagination, you are revealing exactly how little effort is needed in order to experience the change. So most Feldenkrais teachers will include in whatever they're teaching you the opportunity for you to practice doing something in your imagination. And it is very effective, but it's also really unfamiliar. The science is good. The evidence from neuroscience of using your imagination in a very precise way in order to learn a particular skill, there's quite a few books about it. One of the things that I'm going to add to my website soon is a book list for people to explore some of these very well established scientific elements of what goes on in Feldenkrais, because the whole understanding of neuroplasticity and learning is improving and growing in leaps and bounds at the moment, because it's getting easier and easier to find evidence for these sorts of things. Now, neurologically observational equipment is so good. So lots of things that Feldenkrais discovered by trial and error and exploration are now being backed up by hard evidence. And actually the evidence for the benefits of imagining has been around for a very long time. Anyone who remembers in a game of music, in a game of skiing, in a game of tennis, those inner game books very early on in the sports world, people realised that one of the ways that you could make it more effective and easier for an athlete to recover from an injury would be for them to include imagining their training process. And that's been around a long time, but the people who understand it best have been the sports people in the sports world, and other people have not been using it as much. So let me repeat, if you are merely imagining a movement, and once you are good at that, you can do it anywhere. Such a useful skill. But when you're imagining, it does become obvious that very low effort is effective. So when people don't hear that, and sometimes when I'm teaching, I can tell that the person in the space is not hearing the suggestion that they could be more gentle, then nearly always it's because they've done a class of some sort. They've trained in some method where always making a lot of effort, always going to your fullest extent. Yes, if you've done a class that involves a lot of stretching, then there's a very good chance that you are inured to pain, believe that the pain is a sign that you're doing something right, and are used to having the signal of the discomfort to tell you when to stop. And it can take a little while to start to have confidence in the improvements that can be gained when you learn not to push up against that discomfort boundary and to stay within what's easy and pleasant and comfortable. And this range element, there's two very interesting things about this. I hope they're interesting to you. They're certainly interesting to me. One came from a fantastic Feldenkrais teacher and trainer called Larry Goldfarb. I don't remember anyone saying this next thing I'm about to say in my own training, but I remember Larry saying it a few years ago at one of the trainings in London, and just a light bulb in my head how perfect it was as a way to talk to my own students. Is that when a movement gets easier in a Feldenkrais lesson, it's easier at the beginning. So we might, begin a class with a gentle rotation of the head. Imagine I'm lying down, I'm lying on the floor, so the weight of my head is supported and I'm rolling. And I'm observing how easy it is to turn to the left and turn to the right and turn to the left. And then if that improves, if that gets easier in the lesson, it's not because I can go further, though often I can. It's because right at the beginning, the initial overcoming of inertia to start moving, that's what gets easier. Going from naught to freedom in no time at all. So yes, when a movement gets easier in a Feldenkrais lesson, it's not about range, it's about how easily you embark in a particular direction. And Feldenkrais's idea of how to talk about an efficient and functional human stance, he didn't like the word posture, is that when we are moving and being functionally, if we are in a well-organised state, we can move in any direction without preparation. So if I'm sort of in a well-organised state on the chair, I can get up very easily without having to do an awful lot. If I'm sitting cross-legged, in order to stand up, I either have to do one of the really fabulous Feldenkrais lessons that at some point I'm sure I'll get around to teaching in a recorded context, or I have to uncross my legs first. I have to prepare myself to be able to get up. And so being able to move without preparation, this is the idea, a very martial artist's, judo master's idea of what well-being in standing in gravity might manifest as: having good balance, having good ease, having good poise, having grace. There was one more thing I was going to tuck into there, just glancing at my notes to see what the other thing was. This is way too long of a gap. But actually that ended up being quite long, so I think I'm actually going to pause here, because the other thing I want to talk about that is to do with range also deserves a nice long space for discussion. So I will be back shortly.